Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin tonight's chilling story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new horror tale. And I have a question for you. What city are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read your comments with great excitement, and I love seeing where everyone is watching from around the world. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin tonight's terrifying story. The photo is still in my camera roll, buried between screenshots of work schedules and pictures of coffee I don't remember buying. I should delete it. I know that, but every few months, usually when I'm alone and can't sleep, I open it again and zoom in on the hallway. I was 22 then, living in Cedar Rapids and working night shifts as a receptionist at an urgent care clinic while finishing nursing prerequisites at the community college. Most of my life felt like it happened under fluorescent lights, clinic lights, grocery store lights, the blue light of my phone at 2 a.m. when I was too tired to sleep but too anxious to put it down. That was why I said yes when my friend Lila invited us over for a sleepover at her aunt's house. It sounds childish now, calling it a sleepover, but we were all broke, stressed, and lonely in different ways. Lila had just moved back after a bad breakup. Sam was working doubles at Target. Jenna had failed a class and was pretending not to care. I was tired of going home to my quiet apartment where the fridge hummed louder than my thoughts. Lila's aunt's house was on a dead-end street near Bever Park. Old place. 2 stories, narrow porch, 1 front door, and windows that looked black from the outside even when the lights were on. Her aunt was out of town, and Lila was house-sitting. "It's not creepy," she said when I hesitated at the porch. "It's just old." Inside, it smelled like lemon cleaner, old carpet, and the faint dusty warmth of a house that had been closed up all day. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The hallway light flickered once when we came in, and Sam immediately said, "Absolutely not." We laughed because it was easier than admitting the house felt strange. Lila locked the front door behind us. I remember that clearly because she turned the deadbolt twice, tugged the knob, and said, "Happy? No murderers." There was no back door, at least not one we could use. The kitchen had a sealed mudroom beyond it, but Lila said her aunt kept storage boxes there and had the door bolted from the inside. The windows were painted shut. We checked them because Jenna was paranoid about old houses. For the first few hours, nothing happened. We ate frozen pizza off paper plates. We painted our nails badly. We complained about customers, exes, professors, and money. Around midnight, Sam suggested taking stupid group pictures like we used to in high school. We set my phone against a stack of books on the living room shelf and used the timer. The living room opened straight into the hallway, and behind us you could see the staircase, the bathroom door, and the dark stretch leading toward the kitchen. The first few pictures were blurry. In one, Jenna was falling off the couch. In another, Lila had her mouth open mid-laugh. We were loud enough that none of us noticed anything at first. Then there was the smell. It came in the middle of us laughing. Damp fabric, like a coat that had been left in the rain and shoved into a closet. "Do you smell that?" I asked. Lila sniffed. "Old house." I accepted that because I wanted to. A little later, Sam paused the movie and asked if one of us had walked into the hall. "No," Jenna said. "I heard the floor." We all went quiet. The house settled around us, giving off those little wooden ticks old houses make when the heat kicks on. Rain slid down the windows. Somewhere outside, a car passed slowly, tires hissing on wet pavement. Lila called out, "Hello." Nothing answered. We laughed again, but softer this time. At 12:17 a.m., according to the timestamp, we took the photo. All 4 of us were on the couch, wrapped in blankets, making ridiculous scared faces. Jenna had popcorn in her hair. Sam was holding a kitchen knife as a joke, because she had been making fun of horror movies where everyone investigates noises unarmed. Behind us, in the hallway, someone was standing near the bathroom door. Not a shadow, not a coat, a person, tall, lean, wearing a dark hoodie. Their face was mostly hidden, but the pale line of one cheek showed just above the collar. None of us saw it that night. What we did see was the bathroom door. It had been closed earlier. Around 1 in the morning, I noticed it was open about 6 inches. "I thought you went in there," I told Lila. She shook her head. Sam got up and pushed the door open with her foot. The bathroom was empty. The mirror was fogged in one corner, like someone had breathed on it. That was the first time I felt afraid. Not scared in a fun way. Not old house scared. Real scared. The kind that makes your hearing sharpen. "I'm calling my brother," Lila said, trying to sound annoyed instead of nervous. Her brother didn't answer. We decided to sleep in the living room with the lights on. Jenna dragged the coffee table in front of the hallway entrance as a joke, but nobody laughed much. At 2:38 a.m., I woke up because someone whispered. I didn't hear words, just the shape of a voice. The TV had gone to sleep, leaving the room dim and blue. Sam was on the floor beside the couch. Jenna was curled under a blanket. Lila was awake, staring toward the hallway. "You heard that?" she mouthed. Before I could answer, the floor creaked upstairs. Slowly. One step, then another. Lila's face changed in a way I'll never forget. All the sleep left it. "There's nobody upstairs," she whispered. The next sound came from the stairwell. Not a footstep. A hand sliding along the banister. Sam sat up. "What is that?" We all turned toward the hall. A shape moved at the top of the stairs, just enough to block the nightlight glow from the landing. I don't remember deciding to run. I remember grabbing my phone. I remember Jenna knocking over a lamp. I remember Lila fumbling with the deadbolt while Sam held the kitchen knife with both hands and kept saying, "Go, go, go." We spilled onto the porch barefoot in the rain. Lila slammed the door behind us and we ran to my car. From the driver's seat, I looked back at the house. The upstairs curtain moved. I called 911 from the curb. My voice sounded far away when I told the operator there was someone inside the house. Lila kept saying, "We locked the door. We locked the door." Police arrived in 7 minutes. They found him in the upstairs linen closet. He was 28. His name was Marcus Vale, though none of us knew him. He had lived in the house years earlier with his mother, before Lila's aunt bought it. He had been arrested twice for breaking into vacant houses. The officers said he probably slipped inside earlier that evening when Lila had the front door propped open while carrying groceries. He had been inside the whole time. In the attic, police found a backpack, 2 bottles of water, a phone charger, and a black hoodie damp from the rain. One of the upstairs windows had pry marks from old attempts, but it hadn't opened that night. He didn't come in after we locked the door. He was already there when Lila turned the deadbolt. The next morning, while giving my statement, I opened my photos to check the timeline. That was when I saw him, standing behind us, watching us pretend to be scared. The officer took my phone for evidence, then gave it back 2 days later. He told us the photo helped prove Marcus had been moving around the house while we were awake. Lila sold most of her aunt's furniture after that. Jenna stopped sleeping over anywhere for months. Sam joked about it the most, which is how I knew it had scared her badly. As for me, I still check closets when I enter a house. I check behind shower curtains. I don't care if people laugh. I don't care if it seems rude, because locked doors are comforting, but they only protect you from what's outside. They don't do anything about what was already waiting in the hall. Story 2. The rule at Zoe's house was simple. Nobody went near the basement door. She said it the same way people say not to touch a thermostat. Casual, automatic, like it had been repeated so many times it didn't need explaining. I was 21, working mornings at a coffee shop in Morgantown, West Virginia, and taking 2 online classes I was barely passing. Zoe and I had known each other since freshman year, but that winter we were both in the same exhausted place. Too broke to go out, too restless to stay alone, too proud to admit we were scared of becoming adults and doing it badly. So when she invited 4 of us to her parents' house for a weekend while they were visiting relatives, I packed a hoodie, a toothbrush, and the kind of cheap chips you buy when your bank account is already warning you. Her house sat at the bottom of a hill near a road that went slick and black when it rained. That night, freezing rain ticked against the siding, and the porch light made everything glitter like broken glass. Inside, the house was warm and crowded with family pictures. It smelled like cinnamon candles and laundry detergent. A normal house. A safe house. Except for the basement door. It was in the kitchen, beside a narrow pantry. Old wood. Brass knob. A deadbolt above the handle. The door had scratches near the bottom, deep enough to catch dirt in the grooves. "Why is it locked like that?" my friend Grant asked. "Storage," Zoe said too quickly. "My dad keeps tools down there. It's a mess." "Locked from this side?" "Because my little cousins used to mess with stuff." She turned away before anyone could ask more. I noticed that. I also noticed how her eyes kept flicking toward the door whenever the house got quiet. For most of the night, we ignored it. We made spaghetti, played cards, and watched bad reality TV in the den. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. Ice tapped the windows. Every so often a car crawled past outside, tires crunching on salt. Around 11:30, I went into the kitchen for water. The basement light was on. I could see it under the door, a thin yellow line stretching across the floor. I stood there holding my cup, waiting for my tired brain to make sense of it. "Zoe," I called. She came in with her sleeves pulled over her hands. When she saw the light, she stopped. "Did you turn that on?" I asked. "No. Can it turn on by itself?" She stared at the line under the door. "Maybe the switch is weird." "From inside?" She didn't answer. Then the light went off. Not flickered. Went off cleanly, like someone had flipped a switch. Zoe forced a laugh and said, "Old wiring." I told myself that was possible. Houses do weird things. Switches fail. Electricity makes sounds. Pipes knock. People explain away strange things because believing the simple answer lets the night keep going. But 10 minutes later, the light came on again. This time everyone saw it. Grant walked over and tried the knob. "Locked." "Don't," Zoe snapped. He raised his hands. "Okay." Her reaction made the room feel smaller. We sat in the den after that with the TV too loud. Nobody said they were scared, but everyone kept looking toward the kitchen. The yellow light stayed on under the basement door for almost 20 minutes. Then it went off. At 12:14, we heard a thump below us. The floor gave it a soft, heavy sound. Grant muted the TV. Another thump. Then a scrape, slow and dragging, from beneath the kitchen. Zoe stood up. "It's the pipes." "No, it isn't," I said before I could stop myself. She looked at me like I had betrayed her. The sound moved. That was the worst part. It didn't stay in one place. It crossed under the kitchen, then paused near the basement stairs. A few seconds later, we heard the faintest creak. A stair. Then another. Slow footsteps coming up from below. Zoe began to cry without making any sound. "Zoe," I whispered, "who has a key?" She shook her head. The basement door rattled once. Not violently, just a testing movement. Grant grabbed a chair and wedged it under the knob, even though the deadbolt was still locked. A voice came from the other side. "Zoe." It was a man's voice. Hoarse. Close to the door. Nobody moved. "Zoe, open up." She covered her mouth. Grant whispered, "Who is that?" Zoe's answer was barely air. "My mom's brother." She told us later. Her Uncle Ray had lived with them for 6 months when she was in high school after losing his job. He drank, stole money, and once scared Zoe badly enough that her dad changed the locks and told him never to come back. The basement had an old outside storm cellar entrance behind the house. Her dad had sealed it with a padlock, but Ray used to know every weak spot in that house. And apparently he still did. The door handle turned again. "Come on," he said softly now. "It's cold down here." That calm voice did something to me. If he had yelled, maybe I would have understood the danger faster. But he sounded patient, like someone asking for a glass of water. Zoe backed away from the kitchen. I called 911. When the dispatcher answered, I tried to explain, but my voice kept shaking. The man behind the door must have heard me, because the knob stopped moving. Then he slammed into the door. The chair jumped. Zoe screamed. Grant shoved both hands against the chair back. Another hit made the deadbolt crack against the frame. We ran out the front door into freezing rain. I slipped on the porch steps and hit my knee hard enough to make my vision flash, but Grant pulled me up. We crossed the street to a neighbor's house and pounded until an older woman opened the door in a robe, already holding her phone because she had heard us screaming. From her living room window, we watched police surround Zoe's house. Ray didn't make it upstairs. They found him in the basement, hiding behind old Christmas bins. He had pried open the outside storm cellar hatch under the back deck. He had a flashlight, a blanket, and one of Zoe's dad's old work gloves. He had been sleeping down there for at least 2 nights. The basement door really had been locked for years. It just wasn't the only way in. The police report listed it as unlawful entry and attempted burglary, but that phrase never felt big enough for what happened. Burglary makes it sound like he wanted a TV. It doesn't capture the way he said Zoe's name through the door, like he had been waiting for her to be alone. Zoe's parents put the house up for sale the next spring. She stopped talking about it after a while, and I didn't push. Some fear doesn't become a story right away. Sometimes it becomes a habit. I still notice basement doors. In rental houses, restaurants, campus buildings, anywhere. I look at the hinges. I look for light under the frame. And when someone says, "Don't worry, it's locked," I don't feel reassured anymore. A locked door only matters if you know every other way in. Story 3. On the night the baby monitor said my name, I was pretending to be fine. I was 23, living in Tacoma, Washington, and working closing shifts at a pharmacy where customers treated me like part of the furniture. 2 months earlier, my boyfriend of 3 years had left with a sentence so bland it almost hurt worse. "I just don't think this is working." After that, I said yes to every invitation because silence had started to feel personal. That was how I ended up at my friend Marin's apartment on a rainy Saturday night with 3 other people, 2 pizzas, and a toddler sleeping in the next room. Marin's little brother, Nico, was 3. Their mom worked overnight at a care facility, so Marin watched him most weekends. Her apartment was on the 2nd floor of a tan building near South 38th Street, above a nail salon and across from a bus stop where people always seemed to be waiting even after the buses stopped running. The apartment was small but cozy. The living room carpet had a juice stain near the couch. The kitchen light buzzed. Rain tapped against the balcony door, and every few minutes the pipes knocked behind the wall like someone shifting in their sleep. Nico's room was at the end of the hall. Marin kept an old baby monitor on the coffee table, the kind with a small screen and a speaker that crackled when the signal got weak. "Does that thing still work?" I asked. "Mostly," Marin said. "Sometimes it picks up weird sounds from other apartments." That became a joke for the first hour. Every time the monitor hissed, Caleb would whisper, "The baby knows what you did." Nico slept through everything. At 10:46, the monitor crackled so loudly that the movie sound seemed to fall away beneath it. Then a whisper came through. "Aaliyah." My name. Not loud. Not clear enough to be mistaken for someone in the room. It sounded close to the microphone, soft and breathy. Everyone looked at me. "Very funny," I said, though nobody was smiling. Caleb lifted both hands. "Wasn't me." Marin picked up the monitor. On the little screen, Nico was asleep on his side, one arm hanging over his blanket. His nightlight made the wall glow blue. "It's interference," Marin said. "These things are cheap." I wanted to believe that. Then the voice came back. "She's sitting on the floor." My stomach tightened. I was sitting on the floor, back against the couch, because the others had taken the cushions. Marin turned the monitor around, checking the buttons. "Hello." "Only static." Caleb got up and walked toward Nico's room. The voice whispered, "Don't wake him." Caleb stopped. The hallway suddenly looked longer than it had before. Nico's bedroom door was open a few inches, and a strip of blue night light spilled across the carpet. Marin said, "Who is this?" The monitor popped with static. Then the voice said, "Marin's wearing red socks." She was. That was when the fear changed shape. It was no longer creepy. It was specific. Marin grabbed her phone and opened the baby monitor app. She frowned. "It says another device is connected." "What device?" I asked. "I don't know." She tried to disconnect it. The app froze. Nico stirred on the screen. The voice said, "He's awake." Marin ran to the bedroom. We followed her, all of us trying to move quietly and failing. Nico was sitting up in bed, confused and crying softly. The room smelled like baby shampoo and warm laundry. His toy dinosaurs were lined along the dresser. The monitor camera sat on a shelf, angled toward the bed. Nothing else was there. Marin scooped Nico up and carried him into the living room. Caleb unplugged the camera from the wall. The monitor screen went black. For 5 seconds, I felt relief. Then the speaker crackled again. "Bad idea." Marin dropped it. The monitor was unplugged. The camera was unplugged. The parent unit was still on battery, but there should have been no feed. Caleb picked it up and held the power button until it died. The apartment went quiet except for Nico crying into Marin's shoulder. Then someone knocked on the front door. 3 soft taps. No one spoke. Another 3 taps. Marin whispered, "Don't answer." We didn't. A phone vibrated on the coffee table. Mine. Unknown number. The message said, "You looked scared when I said your name." I stared at it until the letters blurred. "How does he have your number?" Marin whispered. I didn't know. Then I remembered the pharmacy. A week earlier, a man had come in near closing to buy children's cough syrup and a prepaid phone card. He had stared at my name tag for too long. "You work late?" he had asked. I gave the standard customer service laugh. Sometimes. His receipt had jammed in the printer, and I had written the store number on the back for a survey because my manager was pushing us to get reviews. My first name was on my tag. My schedule had been taped near the pickup counter for anyone tall enough to see. I had forgotten him by the next day. He had not forgotten me. The knocking stopped. Outside the balcony door, rain streaked the glass. Beyond it, the walkway light flickered. A shadow moved past the window. We all backed toward the kitchen. Caleb called 911 while Marin locked herself and Nico in the bathroom. I stood in the kitchen holding a frying pan because it was the only thing within reach. The doorknob turned once, slowly, then stopped. By the time police arrived, the walkway was empty. But they found him downstairs behind the building, sitting in a gray sedan with the engine off. His name was Evan Kroll. He lived in the apartment building across the alley, close enough to see Marin's balcony, and close enough for certain cheap monitors to connect if the password had never been changed. He had a laptop in the passenger seat. The police later told Marin he had connected to the baby monitor using the default login from the device manual. He had watched the living room through the reflection in Nico's dark bedroom window when the bedroom door was open. That was how he knew where we were sitting. That was how he knew the socks, the movie, the moment Caleb stood up. The unknown text came from a prepaid phone. The number had been activated that week. The official report used words like unauthorized access, harassment, and attempted unlawful entry. Again, those words felt too clean. Marin moved out before the lease ended. Her mom threw the monitor away in a dumpster behind the care facility. I deleted every delivery app that had my address saved. I stopped wearing my name tag outside work, even to walk to my car. For months, I couldn't stand static. Not from radios. Not from speakers. Not from phone calls where the signal cut in and out. The worst part was not that a stranger had watched us. It was that he used something meant to protect a child to make us feel trapped inside a normal apartment. I used to think privacy was something you lost all at once. Now I know it can leak through small things. A default password, a name tag, a door left cracked open, a device you trust because it sits beside a sleeping child. Fear does not always enter loudly. Sometimes it connects quietly and waits for you to hear it. Story 4. There are houses in small towns that look asleep even when someone inside is watching. I learned that in October, in a rental house on Willow Street in Ashland, Ohio, where the sidewalks cracked around old maple roots and every porch seemed to have a flag, a pumpkin, or a camera pointed at the street. I was 24 and working the deli counter at a grocery store while trying to save enough money to move out of my cousin's spare room. My life had narrowed into routines, Slice meat, wipe counters, smile at customers, go home, scroll my phone, sleep badly, repeat. When my coworker Danny invited me to spend the weekend at her place with 2 other friends, I said yes before she finished asking. Her house was small, rented, and drafty. The living room smelled like apple cider candles and old radiator heat. Rain had come through earlier, leaving the street shiny under the lamps. We ordered Chinese food, put on a crime documentary, and pretended we were not all secretly relieved to be around people. Across the street was a white house with green shutters. An old man lived there, Mr. Pell. Danny said he was harmless but strange. He stands in the window sometimes, she told us while closing the blinds. Don't wave. He doesn't wave back. Of course, that made us look. At 9:15, Mr. Pell stood in the upstairs window facing Danny's house. He was thin, wearing a pale shirt, his head slightly tilted. The room behind him was dark, so he looked like a cutout pressed against the glass. Creepy, my friend Marcus said. Danny shrugged. He's been doing it since I moved in. We went back to the documentary. At 10:30, I looked again. Still there. At 11:45, after the food had gone cold and the cider candle burned low, he was still there. Same position, same angle. Maybe he fell asleep standing up, Marcus joked. But nobody laughed hard. The first red flag was his stillness. People shift weight. They scratched their face. They looked down. He didn't. The second was the car. A dark SUV rolled past Danny's house twice around midnight. Slow both times. No headlights the second time, only the faint red glow of the dashboard. Small town, Danny said. People drive weird. I told myself she was right. At 12:22, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop looking at me. I read it 3 times. My hands went cold. What? Danny asked. I turned the phone toward her. Her face lost color. Marcus stood and yanked the blinds fully closed. My phone buzzed again. That won't help. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Then Danny whispered, "How does he have your number?" I didn't know, but I had ordered the Chinese food. I had given my number over the phone. The delivery receipt was still on the coffee table, my name and number printed near the top. The delivery driver had looked at it. Anyone could have. That was the explanation I grabbed, because I needed one. Danny called the non-emergency police line. While she waited, Marcus peeked through the side of the blinds. "He's still there," he said. "Stop looking," I snapped. The dispatcher told Danny an officer would drive by when available. Small town. Friday night. No immediate threat unless someone crossed onto the property. At 1:03, all the lights in Mr. Pell's house went off. Except the upstairs window. The figure remained. A single lamp clicked on behind him, casting his outline sharper against the glass. That was when I noticed something that made my throat tighten. His shoulders were too square. Not like a person, like a coat on a hanger. Marcus whispered, "I don't think that's him." Danny looked through the blinds and covered her mouth. The figure in the window did not move because it was not a man. It was a jacket stuffed over something tall, with a pale mask or maybe a pillowcase where the face should have been. Before anyone could react, my phone buzzed again. Smart girl. Then the back door handle rattled. Danny screamed. The sound was small, quick, almost polite. Metal turning against a locked latch. Marcus grabbed a fireplace poker. I pulled Danny's kitchen table against the back door with such force that one leg cracked. The handle turned again. Then came a knock. 1 tap. A pause. 2 taps. A man outside whispered, "Open the door, Danny." Not loud. Not angry. Familiar. Danny started shaking. "That's not Mr. Pell." The whisper came again. "I know you're in there." Marcus called 911 this time and shouted that someone was trying to get inside. The dispatcher kept him on the line. The man outside stopped knocking. Footsteps moved across the back steps. Then my phone buzzed one last time. Wrong house to watch. A police cruiser turned onto Willow Street less than 4 minutes later. The person in the backyard ran. I saw him through the kitchen window for half a second as he crossed under the motion light. He was not old. He wore a black raincoat and gloves. He vaulted Danny's back fence and disappeared between garages. Police found the SUV abandoned 2 streets over. They also found Mr. Pell. He was alive, thank God, but he was not in the window. He was asleep downstairs in a recliner, heavily medicated after a minor surgery. His nephew, Colin, had been staying with him to help. According to the police, Colin had set up the figure in the upstairs window days earlier, so neighbors would think Mr. Pell was awake and watching the street. But Colin was the one watching. He had been using his uncle's house to store stolen packages and tools. Danny had complained earlier that week about seeing people come and go from Mr. Pell's garage at night. She thought she was being a good neighbor. Colin decided she had seen too much. The text messages came from a prepaid phone found under the SUV seat. The police never proved how he got my number, but the officer said it was probably from the delivery receipt. The Chinese restaurant used carbon copies. 1 copy went out with the driver. 1 stayed on the counter. I kept thinking about that, how easy it was for a stranger to turn a normal detail into a way inside your life. Danny moved out before Thanksgiving. Marcus installed longer screws in every strike plate in his apartment. I stopped ordering food to places that were not mine. I also stopped looking into windows at night, even when I feel watched. The story people told later was that we got scared by a mannequin in a window. That was not the scary part. The scary part was realizing the mannequin was bait. Sometimes the thing you think is watching you is only there to keep your eyes in the wrong place. Story 5. We built the blanket fort because none of us could afford to go anywhere. I was 25, substitute teaching in Dayton, and driving for a food delivery app on weekends, which meant I was always tired in 2 different ways. Tired in my body from stairs and bad weather. Tired in my head from trying to sound cheerful to kids who could tell I was barely holding my own life together. My friend Elise had just moved into the first floor of an old duplex near Brown Street, close enough to the university that you could hear drunk students on weekends and delivery scooters whining past until after midnight. Her place was cheap because it deserved to be. The floors leaned. The radiators hissed. The bathroom door didn't close unless you lifted it. The living room had an ugly square of carpet that didn't match the rest, and when I asked about it, Elise said, "Landlord special. Don't pull it up unless you want to find despair." There were 5 of us that night, me, Elise, Andre, Molly, and Theo. Theo was the reason we built the fort. He had been in a bad place since losing his warehouse job, though he covered it with jokes. When Molly said we should do something stupid and nostalgic, Theo immediately started dragging chairs into the living room. By 10 p.m., we had turned the room into a ridiculous maze of sheets, blankets, couch cushions, and broom handles. We used chip clips to hold blankets to curtain rods. We made tunnels between the couch and TV stand. Someone put fairy lights inside, and for a while the whole thing glowed warm and gold, like childhood if childhood smelled like dust and cheap pizza. Outside, rain hit the windows hard enough to blur the streetlights. Inside, we crawled through the fort taking videos, laughing too loudly, pretending the world was not waiting for us outside. The first strange thing happened when Andre's phone disappeared. He swore he left it near the entrance of the fort. We found it 10 minutes later under the mismatched carpet square in the living room, half slid beneath the edge. "How did it get there?" he asked. Theo shrugged. "Ghost of unpaid rent." We laughed. I told myself one of us had kicked it. The second thing was the draft. Every time I crawled through the back corner of the fort, near the TV stand, cold air touched my face. Not normal old window cold. This felt like air coming from below. "Elise, do you have a vent under here?" I asked. "No idea. You live here. I pay to sleep here." "That's different." She laughed, but she looked uneasy. Around 11:30, we turned off the lamps and kept only the fairy lights on. The fort became a low glowing shape in the living room. Outside, traffic faded. The apartment above us went quiet. We started playing a dumb game where one person crawled into the fort, hid somewhere, and the others had to guess where they were by asking questions. Theo went in last. He saluted us with a slice of cold pizza and crawled through the blanket entrance on his elbows. Count to 30, he said. We did. At 30, Molly called. Are you by the couch? No answer. Are you cheating? Andre asked. Still nothing. Elise rolled her eyes and lifted one blanket near the entrance. Theo? The inside of the fort glowed softly. Empty. We all stared. That's not funny, Molly said. Andre lifted another blanket, then another. The fort collapsed in sections, chairs scraping, sheets sliding down, fairy lights blinking against the carpet. Theo was gone. There was no back door from the living room. The windows were locked. The kitchen was visible from where we stood. The bathroom door was open. The bedroom doors were closed and empty when we checked them. Theo, I shouted. From somewhere beneath us, faint and muffled, came one word. Don't. Everything stopped. Elise whispered, Where is he? The mismatched carpet square shifted. Just a little. I noticed it because my eyes were already searching for something wrong. Andre grabbed the edge and pulled. Beneath it was a plywood panel set into the floor. Old. Painted around the edges. One corner had been lifted recently, leaving fresh scratches in the dust. Molly started crying. Andre reached for the panel. From below, Theo whispered again, louder this time. Don't open it. Then another voice, lower and closer to the panel, said, Listen to your friend. I have never felt a room change so fast. One moment it was blankets, pizza boxes, fairy lights, rain. The next, it was a trap. Elise backed into the wall. Andre froze with his hand still inches from the floor. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, but my fingers were shaking so badly I hit the wrong number first. The panel moved upward. Not all the way. Just enough for darkness to show beneath it. A man's fingers curled around the edge. Andre stomped on the panel with both feet. The hand vanished. A heavy thud came from below. Theo shouted. Molly screamed his name. I got through to 911 and said there was someone under the floor. The operator asked if this was a basement. We don't have a basement, Elise sobbed. But the house did have something. Police later called it a crawl space, though that word makes it sound small and harmless. It ran under the duplex, connecting to an old exterior access door behind the building. The landlord had supposedly sealed it years ago. He had not. A man named Russell Hain had been living down there on and off for weeks. He was a former maintenance worker for the property company. He still had keys to several buildings and knew which tenants were new, which ones lived alone, and which repairs no one would bother checking. Police found food wrappers, a sleeping bag, a flashlight, and a plastic bin filled with items taken from apartments. Chargers, jewelry, cash, prescription bottles, and spare keys. Theo had crawled into the fort and felt the floor move under him. When he lifted the carpet, Russell grabbed his ankle and pulled him through the access panel. Theo survived. He had bruises, a panic attack, and a voice that shook for weeks afterward, but he survived because Andre stomped the panel shut before Russell could climb into the room. When the police arrived, they found Theo curled near a support beam, too scared to move because Russell had told him his friends would get hurt if he made noise. Russell was caught trying to crawl out through the exterior access door behind the duplex. The landlord acted shocked. The police did not look shocked. That told me enough. Elise broke her lease with help from a legal aid office. Theo moved back in with his sister for a while. None of us talked about the blanket fort again, not as a joke. There are some childhood things you can't return to after the adult world gets inside them. For a long time after, I hated low spaces. Beds with gaps under them, crawlspace doors, loose vents, any room where the floor sounded hollow. I also stopped confusing cheap rent with luck. That night taught me that unsafe places do not always announce themselves with broken windows and crime scene tape. Sometimes they come with fairy lights, friends, and one ugly square of carpet nobody wants to question. Comfort can make you lower your guard, but your instincts are often the part of you still paying attention. Here are the 5 grounded, realistic first-person horror stories based on your titles. Story 6. The app had a smiley face icon, the kind that looked like it belonged on a kid's tablet, not on 5 17-year-old girls' phones at 1:12 in the morning. It was called Daredrop. I remember that because I stared at the name for a long time before I downloaded it, my thumb hovering over the screen, telling myself I was being dramatic. I was always the cautious one, the one who read reviews, the one who locked the car twice, the one who pretended not to care when people called me boring. At the time, I was a senior in high school in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, working 22 hours a week at a Hy-Vee bakery counter and trying to save money for community college. My parents had separated that winter, and most nights I felt like I was living between two houses that didn't want me fully in either one. So when Sarah invited me to her birthday sleepover, I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. Sarah's house was a ranch-style place at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, the kind with motion lights over the garage and a basement that smelled like popcorn, old carpet, and laundry detergent. Her parents were upstairs, but they had gone to bed early. Downstairs, it was just us, Sarah, Mia, Lauren, Jess, and me. We had pizza boxes on the floor, blankets everywhere, and a horror movie paused on the TV because Mia had found the app. "It's supposed to give you dares based on where you are," she said, grinning at us over her phone. "Absolutely not," I said. Sarah laughed. "It's probably fake. Like, eat mustard or call your crush." I didn't want to be the one who ruined the mood. I had already felt slightly outside the circle all night, like everyone else knew how to be young and careless, and I had somehow skipped that part. So I downloaded it too. The app asked for camera access, microphone access, contacts, location, Bluetooth, nearby devices. "That's weird," I said. Lauren waved her phone. "Every app asks for everything now." That was the first thing I ignored. The first dare was harmless. Turn off all the lights for 10 seconds. Sarah jumped up and hit the basement switch. We screamed and laughed in the dark, even though nothing happened. The TV screen glowed blue. Someone's sock brushed my ankle, and I nearly spilled my soda. The second dare went to Jess. "Stand in the hallway facing the wall until the timer ends." She groaned but did it. The hallway outside the basement rec room led to the bathroom, laundry room, and storage closet. She stood with her forehead almost touching the paint while the app counted down from 20. When she came back, she was laughing, but not as hard. "It felt like someone was behind me," she said. "That's the point," Mia said. The dares kept coming. "Open the dryer. Sing the last song you listened to. Take a picture of the darkest corner in the room." They were stupid, but the room changed as we played. The basement started feeling less like Sarah's safe, familiar basement, and more like a place with too many corners. At 1:47, my phone buzzed. "Your dare. Go upstairs and look out the front window. Do not turn on the light." "No," I said immediately. "Oh, come on," Sarah said. "That's nothing." I told myself it was nothing too. I walked upstairs quietly, my socks sliding on the wood floor. The house was dark except for the green digital clock on the oven and the soft orange glow from the porch light. I looked out the front window. At first all I saw was the street, wet from earlier rain, shining under the street lamp. Then I noticed a car parked 3 houses down. It was a dark sedan with its lights off. I stood there long enough for my eyes to adjust. There was no movement inside, no engine sound, nothing. When I went back downstairs, I said, "There's a car outside." Sarah shrugged. "Probably Mrs. Keller's son. He's always over there." I wanted to believe that. The next dare went to Sarah. "Open the closet behind Sarah." Nobody laughed. Sarah's smile faded. "What?" The app displayed the words on all of our screens at once. "Open the closet behind Sarah." Behind Sarah was the storage closet under the stairs. The door was painted white, with a brass knob and a little scrape near the bottom where it dragged against the carpet. Mia tried to laugh. "Okay, that's creepy. How does it know where I'm sitting?" Sarah asked. "Maybe camera tracking," Lauren said, but her voice was thinner now. Sarah got up slowly. She opened the closet. Inside were board games, a vacuum, wrapping paper tubes, and plastic bins of Christmas decorations. Nothing jumped out. Nothing moved. Then my phone buzzed again. "Good. Now close it." I stopped breathing for a second. "Guys," I said. Everyone checked their phones. Same message. "Good. Now close it." Sarah slammed the door shut. "Delete it," I said. Mia pressed her screen. "It won't let me. It's frozen." Mine was too. The smiley face icon pulsed in the middle of the screen like it was breathing. Then another message appeared. "Do not wake the adults." The room went silent. From upstairs, the house creaked. Normal house noises. Pipes. Wood settling. Sarah's dad snoring faintly through the ceiling. Then we heard it. A soft thump from the garage. Sarah whispered, "Was that my parents?" Nobody answered. Another message appeared. "Sarah, go unlock the side garage door." Her name was on the screen. Not player. Not birthday girl. Sarah. Her face went completely white. "No," I said. "Nobody move." The app buzzed again. "Maya is scared." "My name is Maya." I felt something cold move through my chest. It buzzed again. Maya saw the car. That was when I stopped trying to explain it away. I grabbed Sarah's arm and whispered, "Call your parents." She shook her head, crying now. "My phone is frozen." I picked up the basement landline, but it was dead. Sarah said they barely used it anymore. I ran to the stairs, but before I reached them, the door at the top opened. Not fully, just enough for a rectangle of darkness to appear. Then a voice whispered from the top of the stairs. "Sarah?" It was not her dad. Sarah clapped both hands over her mouth. The voice came again, soft and patient. "Sarah, it's okay. Open the garage door." Lauren started sobbing. Jess grabbed the fireplace poker from beside the fake electric fireplace. Mia was tapping at her phone like she could break through the frozen screen by force. I remembered my work phone in my backpack. My manager had given it to me that week because I was covering early bakery shifts, and I had tossed it inside my bag before coming over. It wasn't connected to the app. I crawled across the carpet, keeping low for no reason except fear told me to. The backpack was under a blanket near the couch. My fingers shook so badly I almost couldn't unzip it. The voice at the stairs changed. "Maya." My body locked. "Maya, I know you're down there." I got the work phone out and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered, and I whispered Sarah's address, then said, "Someone is in the house." The door at the top of the stairs opened wider. Footsteps started down. Slow. Careful. One step at a time. Jess raised the fireplace poker. Sarah was shaking so hard she could barely stand. I pulled everyone toward the laundry room because it had a door with a lock. We got inside, and I turned the lock just as someone reached the bottom of the stairs. The handle moved. Once. Twice. Then a knock. Not hard. Almost polite. A man's voice said, "You girls were having fun a minute ago." Nobody made a sound. Then the app buzzed from all of our phones outside the laundry room, still scattered on the couch and carpet. Final dare, open the door. Police arrived 7 minutes later. I know because the dispatcher stayed on the line, counting breaths with me, telling us not to unlock anything until officers identified themselves. We heard shouting upstairs, then running, then the garage door banging open. They caught him 2 blocks away hiding behind a parked SUV. His name was not anyone we knew. He was 26, lived in an apartment complex near the high school, and had been using fake social media accounts to follow girls from our school for months. The app wasn't in any official store. Mia had downloaded it from a link sent by a profile she thought belonged to a guy from another school. Police said it let him see our location, access microphones, and send custom prompts. He had also been outside Sarah's house that night, watching through the basement window well whenever we moved near it. The car I saw belonged to him. The garage door had been left unlocked earlier when Sarah's dad took out the trash. The man slipped in while we were playing. The proof came later in pieces. A detective showed my parents screenshots of the app's control panel. Sarah's parents gave police their doorbell camera footage. It showed him walking up their driveway at 1:39 a.m. in a gray hoodie, keeping his face turned away from the camera. The worst part was how calm he looked, like he had done it before, like he expected the app to make us obey. I deleted every social app from my phone for almost a year. I stopped sleeping over at people's houses. When I went to college, I covered my webcam with tape and never downloaded anything from a link, no matter who sent it. People think fear begins when something terrible happens. For me, it began when I realized danger does not always break a window or kick in a door. Sometimes it smiles at you from a screen and asks for permission. Story 7. I still remember the exact time because Elena's alarm clock was broken. It had been stuck on 2:17 for months, the red numbers glowing from her nightstand like a warning nobody understood yet. She said it happened after a power surge. I thought it was funny at first. Every time I slept over, I would point at it and say, "Look, time died again." I was 18 that spring, living in a small town outside Lexington, Kentucky, and trying to survive the last few weeks before graduation. My mom worked overnight shifts at a rehab center. My dad lived 3 counties away with his new wife. Most nights, our house felt too quiet, so I spent as much time as I could at Elena's. Elena was my best friend, but her house always made me uneasy after dark. It sat at the edge of a subdivision that backed up to empty fields and a tree line. During the day, it looked pretty. White porch, blue shutters, flower beds, wind chimes. At night, the fields behind it became one flat wall of black. That Friday, it rained hard until almost midnight. Her parents went to bed, and Elena and I stayed up watching cooking videos and eating dry cereal from the box. Her dog, Pepper, a nervous little terrier, slept at the foot of the bed. Around 2 a.m., the house settled into that heavy silence that only happens after rain. The air smelled like wet grass and lavender detergent. Elena was half asleep beside me, still holding her phone. Then the power went out. Everything clicked off at once. The hallway night light, the ceiling fan, the little speaker playing rain sounds. Pepper lifted her head. I whispered, "Elena." She mumbled, "Storm probably." But there was no thunder, no wind, just silence. Pepper jumped off the bed and started barking at the window. Not her normal bark. Not the yappy one she used when a squirrel crossed the yard. This was lower. Panicked. Then came 3 knocks. Tap, 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 on the bedroom window. Elena sat up so fast her phone fell off the blanket. Her room was on the first floor, facing the backyard. The curtains were closed, but the window was only a few feet from the ground outside. "Elena," I whispered, "don't." She was already staring at the curtains. Tap, tap, tap. Same rhythm, same pressure. I grabbed her wrist. "Wake your dad." We ran into the hallway. Her dad checked the breaker box with a flashlight while her mom called the power company. By the time he opened the back door and shined a light across the yard, there was no one there. He found muddy footprints under Elena's window. Big ones. He told us it was probably some drunk neighbor kid messing around. He said that in the way adults say things when they need themselves to believe it. The police came, looked around, took notes, and said to call again if anything else happened. By morning, the power was back. The footprints had softened into ugly marks in the mud. Elena and I joked about it over pancakes because joking was easier than admitting we had both cried in her parents' room until sunrise. The next night, I stayed home. My mom had the overnight shift again, and I told her I was fine by myself. I locked both doors, turned on the porch light, and made a nest on the couch with a blanket and my laptop. Our house was smaller than Elena's, older too, with thin walls and a basement that always smelled faintly like concrete dust. I tried not to think about the knocks. At 2:16 a.m., my laptop froze. At 2:17, the power went out. The whole house dropped into black. I did not move at first. I sat there with the blanket around my shoulders, listening to my own breathing. Then from the kitchen, my dog Charlie started barking. Charlie was old. He barely barked anymore. My phone screen lit up in my hand, showing 1 bar of service. I told myself it was a coincidence. Storm damage, bad wiring, fear making patterns where there weren't any. Then came 3 knocks on the living room window. Tap, tap, tap. I stopped breathing. The couch faced away from the window. I could see the reflection of the room in the black TV screen, and behind me, just barely, the pale rectangle of the curtains. Tap, tap, tap. I slid off the couch onto the floor. My first thought was that whatever had happened at Elena's house had followed me. My second thought was worse. Someone had. I crawled toward the hallway, keeping below the window. Charlie was barking from the kitchen, nails scratching against the tile. I dialed 911 with my thumb, but before I pressed call, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Same time. I stared at it until the words blurred. Then another message appeared. You noticed. I pressed call. The dispatcher asked for my address. I whispered it. She told me to get somewhere with a lock between me and the windows. I ran to the bathroom, shut the door, and pushed the laundry hamper against it. Outside, the knocking stopped. For almost a minute, there was nothing. Then I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow. A board creaked near the front door. The doorknob moved. I had locked it. I knew I had locked it. Still, hearing the metal turn made my whole body go weak. The dispatcher kept asking me questions. Was I alone? Could I see him? Was there another exit? I couldn't answer. I was staring at the crack under the bathroom door, watching darkness shift in the hallway. Then a voice came from outside the bathroom window. Emily. My name. Not loud. Not angry. Just my name, said like we knew each other. I covered my mouth so I wouldn't scream. Police arrived fast because a patrol car had already been nearby. Blue and red lights flashed through the frosted bathroom window. Someone ran across the side yard. An officer shouted, "Stop." The man got away that night. But they found enough. The breaker box outside my house had been opened. Same with Elena's. The officer said someone had flipped the main switch off manually. There were muddy prints under my living room window, and one of my neighbors had a security camera pointed toward the street. The footage showed a dark green pickup truck driving slowly past my house at 2:09 a.m. The same truck had been parked near Elena's subdivision the night before. 2 days later, police found it behind an abandoned gas station outside town. The owner was a man named Curtis Bell, 34, who had worked for a home insulation company the year before. He had been inside both my house and Elena's during energy inspections our parents barely remembered. He knew where our bedrooms were. He knew where the breaker boxes were. He had written down names from mail and graduation yard signs. They found a notebook in his truck with addresses, times, and notes. Next to Elena's address, he had written, "Dog reacts first." Next to mine, "Mother works nights." I still think about that line more than anything. My mother stopped working overnights after that. Elena's family moved the next winter. Curtis was eventually arrested in another county after trying the same thing at a college rental house. The detective told us that people like him enjoyed control more than anything. The repeated time, the knocking, the darkness, it was all part of making someone feel trapped inside a pattern he created. For months, I couldn't sleep past 2 a.m. Every small house noise pulled me awake. I learned where every neighbor's camera was. I memorized the sound of cars that belonged on our street. Fear changed the way I understood coincidence. Before that weekend, I thought a repeated moment meant fate or bad luck or some strange glitch in the world. Now I know repetition can be a person practicing, and when something feels staged, sometimes it is. Story 8. Always check who is at the door before you let them become part of the room. I learned that at 19, during my first semester at Ridgeway Community College in Northern Ohio. I was living in a cheap student apartment above a closed tax office, trying to convince everyone, including myself, that I was fine. I wasn't. My boyfriend had dumped me 3 weeks before classes started. My mom kept calling to ask if I was making friends. I had a job folding clothes at a department store, a fridge full of instant noodles, and a habit of saying yes to anything that sounded like belonging. So when Tessa from my psychology class invited me to a sleepover at her apartment, I showed up with drugstore face masks, a 2-liter bottle of Sprite, and the desperate hope that I wouldn't seem as lonely as I felt. Tessa lived in Unit 3B with her roommate Priya. 2 other girls were there when I arrived: Brooke, who talked fast and laughed at everything, and Hannah, who was quieter and kept checking her phone because her friend Kelsey was supposed to come after work. The apartment smelled like garlic knots and vanilla candles. Rain tapped against the window air conditioner. A string of purple lights hung crookedly over the TV. It felt warm and safe in a messy way, and for the first time in weeks, I stopped thinking about my ex. Around 11:40, someone knocked. Brooke yelled, "Kelsey's here," and opened the door without looking through the peephole. A girl stepped in wearing a black hoodie with the hood pulled low, soaked at the shoulders from rain. She had gray sweatpants on and white sneakers with mud on the sides. Her face was mostly hidden. "Hey," she said. Her voice was rough, like she had a cold. Hannah looked up from the couch. "You made it." The girl nodded. That was the first thing that felt off. Not wrong exactly, just incomplete. Everyone else greeted each other with noise and hugs and complaints about the rain. This girl stepped into the apartment like she had been told where to stand. Tessa said, "Bathrooms down the hall if you need to dry off." The girl nodded again and walked past us. I remember noticing her shoes. Kelsey, from what little I knew, wore bright pink Converse. Hannah had mentioned it earlier because she said Kelsey dressed like a cartoon character. The girl in the hoodie wore plain white sneakers, too clean on top, muddy only around the soles. I told myself people own more than one pair of shoes. When she came back from the bathroom, she sat on the floor near the armchair, away from everyone. She kept her hood up. Brooke offered her pizza, and she shook her head. Hannah said, "You okay? You look dead." The girl gave a small laugh. "Long shift," she said. That was all. The night went on. We played a card game. We watched half a movie. Every now and then, I caught the girl in the hoodie looking around the apartment instead of at the TV. Her eyes moved to the kitchen counter where everyone had tossed their keys. Then to Priya's purse by the door. Then to the sliding glass door leading to the fire escape. At 12:26, my phone died. I got up to find my charger, and as I passed the hallway, I saw the bathroom door was open. The medicine cabinet was open too. The girl in the hoodie stood in front of it, not touching anything, just looking. She turned her head toward me slowly. "Sorry," she said. I tried to smile. "Wrong cabinet?" "Yeah." She closed it and walked past me. Her shoulder brushed mine. She smelled like rain and cigarette smoke. I went back to the living room and sat beside Hannah. "Is Kelsey okay?" I whispered. Hannah frowned. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. She seems kind of different." Hannah looked over at her friend. The girl was sitting cross-legged now, head down, hands hidden in the hoodie pocket. "She gets weird when she's tired," Hannah said. But Hannah kept looking at her. At 1:03, Hannah's phone rang. She smiled when she saw the screen. "Speak of the devil." Then her smile vanished. She answered, "Hey, where are you?" I watched her face change. "What?" The room went quiet. Hannah stood up. "No, you're not." The girl in the hoodie lifted her head. Hannah's voice shook. "Kelsey, stop. That's not funny." From where I sat, I could hear a faint voice through the phone. "I'm at home. I told you I'm sick. I never came over." Nobody moved. The girl in the hoodie stood. Tessa whispered, "Who are you?" The girl didn't answer. Brooke stepped toward the door, but the girl moved faster. She grabbed Priya's purse from the floor and yanked the apartment door open. That was when we saw the man in the hallway. He was tall, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap. He had been standing just outside the door, close enough that he must have heard everything. For half a second, all of us froze. Then Tessa screamed. The man reached for the door to push in. I slammed my shoulder into it from the inside, and Priya helped me shove it closed. The girl in the hoodie was still in the apartment, trapped with us. She bolted toward the sliding glass door. "Don't let her out there," Priya yelled. "The fire escape leads down." The girl threw Priya's purse at her and grabbed the latch. I don't remember deciding to move. I just ran. I hit the lock with my palm and jammed the broom handle into the track the way my mom had taught me when I moved in. The girl pulled the door hard, but it only rattled. The man in the hallway started kicking the front door. Once. Twice. The wood shook in the frame. Brooke was crying into the phone with 911. Hannah kept saying, "Kelsey's not here, Kelsey's not here," like repeating it would make sense of the girl standing in the living room. The girl in the hoodie backed into the kitchen. For the first time, I saw her face clearly. She was older than us. Mid-20s maybe. Pale, narrow-faced, with flat eyes that didn't look scared enough. Tessa held up a kitchen knife with both hands. "Stay there," she said. The girl looked at the knife, then at the door, then at the window. The kicking stopped. A few seconds later, we heard footsteps running down the stairs. The girl smiled. Just a little. Then she said, "He won't leave." Police arrived 6 minutes later. They found the man in the alley behind the building, crouched behind the dumpster with Priya's wallet and Brooke's car keys in his pocket. The woman in the hoodie was arrested in the kitchen without a fight. Her name was Marissa Vale. She and the man had been linked to burglaries around student housing near 3 campuses. Their method was simple. She followed delivery drivers or groups of students into buildings, waited for a party or gathering, then slipped in pretending to be someone expected. The man stayed nearby. Once she found keys, wallets, or an unlocked door, he came in after. The police said the scariest part was how often it worked. Hannah later found Kelsey's public Instagram story from earlier that day. It said, "Sick in bed, missing girls' night." Under it, someone had commented with a fake account. Which building? The account disappeared before police could trace much, but security footage showed Marissa entering our building 2 minutes after the pizza delivery driver left. She had probably heard Brooke call out Kelsey's name through the door and used it. For weeks after that, I replayed every small warning sign. The wrong shoes. The short answers. The way she watched the keys. The way everyone accepted her, because questioning her would have felt rude. I used to think loneliness made me unsafe because it made me trust the wrong people. Now I think loneliness is dangerous because it makes you afraid to make things awkward. I would rather make a room uncomfortable now than let the wrong person stay in it. Story 9. The VCR was supposed to be a joke. It sat under Olivia's basement TV like a museum piece, black and dusty, with a strip of masking tape across the top that said, "Be nice, I still work." Her dad collected old electronics, and during her sleepover, someone dared him to prove the VCR actually played tapes. He was upstairs by then, asleep before his early hospital shift, so we started looking for a tape ourselves. I was 20, home in Grand Rapids for winter break from college, and Olivia was one of the few people from high school I still talked to. That year had been rough. I had failed a class, lost my campus job, and come home feeling like everyone else was moving forward without me. Olivia knew that, so she invited a few of us over and said we were going to have a middle school sleepover reboot. No drama, no pressure, just blankets, snacks, and bad movies. There were 4 of us, me, Olivia, Marin, and Tori. Outside, snow tapped softly against the basement windows. The furnace hummed. The carpet smelled like dust and melted chocolate from the brownies we had burned earlier. It felt safe in the way old friendships sometimes do, like you can become a younger version of yourself for one night. We found the VHS tape in a cardboard box in the storage room behind the stairs. It was sitting on top of a stack of Christmas wreaths, not dusty like everything else. The label was white, written in black marker. 1746, Palmer Street. Olivia's address. "That's creepy," Tori said. Olivia frowned. "I've never seen that." I should say now that Olivia's family had lived in that house for only 3 years. Before that, it belonged to an older couple who moved to Arizona. The basement still had things from them in the crawl space. Paint cans, curtain rods, a broken birdcage. Marin held up the tape. "Maybe it's from the old owners. Or it's cursed," Tori said in a fake spooky voice. We laughed because that was easier than admitting the label made the basement feel colder. Olivia pushed the tape into the VCR. The screen flickered blue, then gray. At first, the footage looked old. Really old. The colors were washed out, and the camera shook slightly. It showed the living room upstairs, but not how it looked now. The walls were yellow instead of gray. There was a floral couch where Olivia's sectional sat. A Christmas tree stood near the window. A woman walked through the frame holding a mug. "Old owners," Olivia said, sounding relieved. The footage cut. Now it showed the front hallway from the top of the stairs. A man in a brown jacket carried boxes out the door. The date stamp in the corner said December 18th, 1999. We watched for a few minutes, half bored and half fascinated. Then the footage changed again. The screen went black. When it came back, the video was clearer. Too clear. It showed Olivia's basement. Our basement. The purple blanket was on the couch. The brownie pan sat on the coffee table. Marin's red backpack leaned against the wall. Tori laughed once sharply. "Okay, who did that?" Nobody answered. On the screen, we saw ourselves sleeping. Not from earlier in life. Not staged. That night, the camera angle came from high in the corner near the furnace vent, looking down at the basement couch. Tori was curled under the purple blanket. Marin was on the floor in her hoodie. I was asleep with one arm over my face. Olivia stood up so fast the remote fell out of her lap. "No," she said. The footage timestamp read 1:08 a.m. I checked my phone. 1:31 a.m. The video was less than half an hour old. My skin went cold all at once. Marin whispered, "Where is that camera?" We all looked toward the furnace vent. It was a square metal grate near the ceiling, half hidden behind a fake plant. I had looked at it a dozen times that night without seeing anything strange. Now I saw a tiny black dot behind the slats. Tori started crying. "Turn it off." Olivia hit stop. The VCR clicked, but before the screen went blue, the footage cut again. This time it showed the upstairs hallway. Current hallway. Dark. The camera was lower, moving slightly like someone was holding it. We heard breathing through the TV speakers. Then the camera turned toward Olivia's bedroom door. Olivia made a sound I'll never forget. Not a scream. More like her body had forgotten how to breathe. On the screen, a hand reached toward the doorknob. The basement ceiling creaked above us. We all heard it in real life. Not on the tape. Above us. Olivia grabbed my wrist. "My dad's asleep upstairs." "Call him," I said. She did. The phone rang and rang. No answer. Marin dialed 911. Tori kept staring at the basement stairs. Then, from upstairs, came the sound of a door closing. Softly. The basement had an exterior door that led up a short set of concrete steps to the backyard. It was old and swollen from winter, but Olivia's dad kept a shovel beside it because snow piled up against the outside. "Back door," I whispered. We moved without speaking. Olivia turned the deadbolt on the basement exit. It stuck. She twisted harder. The metal finally clicked. Behind us, the door at the top of the basement stairs opened. A man's voice said, "Girls?" It sounded almost casual, like he had expected us to answer. We ran. The backyard was full of snow, bright under the porch light. I didn't feel the cold at first. I only felt Olivia's hand crushing mine as we stumbled toward the neighbor's house in socks and pajamas. Behind us, a figure appeared at the basement doorway. He did not run after us. He just stood there, half in shadow, watching. The neighbor called police too. Olivia's dad was found upstairs, locked in his bedroom from the outside with a chair wedged under the knob. He had slept through most of it because he had taken cold medicine before bed and had a white noise machine on. Police found cameras in 2 vents and 1 smoke detector. They found cables running through the crawl space to a locked storage cabinet behind the basement wall. Inside were an old VCR, blank tapes, a small monitor, and a sleeping bag. The man who had been in the house was the adult son of the previous owners. His parents had sold the house after he was arrested years earlier for breaking into a neighbor's garage. He had apparently kept a key or found another way in through the old storm cellar door, which no one in Olivia's family used. Police believed he had been coming into the house for weeks when no one was home. The tape was not old. It was a trap. He had recorded old family footage years ago, then added new footage that night to scare us or test whether we would notice. The detective said he may have wanted us to find it. That thought still makes me sick. There was proof everywhere afterward. Fingerprints on the storage room door, footprints in the snow near the storm cellar, footage from a neighbor's camera showing him entering the backyard at 12:44 a.m. Olivia's family moved before spring. I stopped sleeping in basements after that. I stopped trusting vents, smoke detectors, empty storage rooms, and houses that came with stuff left behind. Even now, when I stay somewhere new, I scan corners before I put my bag down. What happened at Olivia's house changed the way I think about the past. Old houses remember people, but sometimes people remember old houses too. And the ones who feel entitled to come back are the ones you should fear most. Story 10. Kara's mother had one rule before she left for the weekend. "Do not open the closet in our bedroom," she said, holding her car keys in one hand and a travel mug in the other. "The door gets stuck and your dad hasn't fixed it yet." That was it. Now don't throw a party. Now don't burn the house down. Just don't open the closet. Kara rolled her eyes after her mom left. "She acts like we're 5. We were 16, and I wanted badly to believe 16 meant almost grown. My name is Natalie, and back then I lived in Plano, Texas, in a 2-bedroom apartment with my aunt. My mom had moved to Phoenix for work, and I was supposed to join her after the semester, but I didn't want to start over again. Kara's house felt like the kind of place people stayed. 2 stories, clean kitchen, framed vacation photos, soft carpet, a pantry full of snacks. I loved sleeping over there because it let me pretend I belonged to a normal family for a night. That Saturday, Kara's parents drove to San Antonio for a wedding. Her older brother was at college. It was just Kara, me, and 2 other girls from school, Beth and Amira. We made nachos, painted our nails on the living room floor, and watched a reality show we kept pausing to make fun of. Outside, the weather was warm and windy. The porch light flickered every few minutes because of a loose bulb. The house smelled like cinnamon plug-ins and the lemon cleaner Kara's mom used on everything. The first odd thing happened around 10:30. Kara got a notification on her phone. Garage door opened. She frowned at it. "Did your parents come back?" I asked. "No. Probably the app glitching." She checked the security camera. It showed the garage, empty except for bikes, storage bins, and her dad's workbench. The garage door looked closed. She shrugged and locked her phone. The second thing was the dog. Kara had a golden retriever named Moose, the friendliest dog I'd ever met. He followed us everywhere until about midnight, when he suddenly refused to go upstairs. He stood at the bottom step, staring toward the landing, a low sound coming from his chest. "Moose," Kara whispered. "Stop being weird." He backed away. I told myself dogs barked at air. Dogs heard pipes. Dogs got nervous for no reason. Around 1 a.m., we went upstairs to Kara's room. Her parents' bedroom was across the hall, door closed. I remember noticing a thin line of light under it, then realizing it was only moonlight from the window at the end of the hall. We spread sleeping bags on Kara's floor. Beth fell asleep first. Amira was texting someone. Kara and I lay awake talking quietly about school, college, and how scared we both were of becoming people we didn't recognize. Then we heard the knock. It came from across the hall. Soft. Knock. Knock. Kara stopped mid-sentence. Amira lowered her phone. Beth stirred but didn't wake. Knock. Knock. "Is that downstairs?" I whispered. Kara shook her head. We listened. There was a pause. Then a voice said, "Kara?" It was a woman's voice. Kara sat up. The voice came again, muffled by the walls and door. "Kara, honey, open the closet." Amira whispered, "Is that your mom?" Kara's face had gone pale. "They're in San Antonio." "Call her," I said. Kara did. Her mother answered on the 3rd ring, sounding sleepy and confused. Kara put it on speaker. "Mom, what's wrong? Are you home?" "What?" "No, we're at the hotel." From across the hall, the voice said again, "Kara." This time we all heard it clearly. Kara's mother went silent on the phone. Then she said very carefully, "Get out of the house." The hallway floor creaked. Beth woke up when Amira grabbed her arm. "What's happening?" Beth mumbled. "Shoes," I said. Now, there was another knock from across the hall, louder this time. Knock. 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 Then the closet door opened. Not the bedroom door. The closet door inside the bedroom. We heard the scrape of wood and a low thud, like something heavy stepping onto carpet. Kara's mom was still on speaker, her voice sharp now. "Kara, leave. Do not go into our room." We moved toward the bedroom door, but then the handle turned from the hallway side. Slowly. Someone was standing right outside Kara's room. Kara locked the door just before the handle twisted fully. For 1 second, nobody breathed. Then a man's voice whispered, "Open it." Not Kara's mother anymore. A man. Beth started crying. Amira crawled backward toward the window. Kara looked frozen, the phone trembling in her hand. I don't know why I was the one who moved. Maybe because I had spent so much of my life feeling temporary that fear made me practical. I grabbed Kara's desk chair and wedged it under the door handle. Then I pushed her dresser until it scraped across the carpet and blocked the bottom half of the door. The man pushed once. The door bowed inward. Kara screamed. Her mom was yelling through the phone that police were coming. Kara's dad must have called them from the hotel. The bedroom window opened onto the roof over the back patio. It wasn't a safe drop, but it was better than the hallway. Amira climbed out first, shaking so badly I had to hold the back of her sweatshirt. Beth followed. Kara went next. I was halfway through the window when the chair under the door handle snapped. The bedroom door slammed open against the dresser. A man stood in the gap. He wore dark clothes and one blue latex glove on his right hand. I remember that glove more than his face. It made him look prepared. He reached for my ankle. I kicked backward and felt my heel connect with something. He grunted. I scrambled onto the roof, cutting my palm on the gutter. Kara grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the edge. We slid down onto the patio cover, then dropped into the backyard one by one. Moose was outside somehow, barking wildly at the side gate. We ran to the neighbor's house barefoot. The police found the man 2 streets away hiding behind a pool equipment shed. His name was Daniel Rusk. He had worked for a closet installation company that had done repairs at Kara's house 6 months earlier. He knew the layout. He knew Kara's parents were gone because Kara had posted a picture of their packed car that afternoon with the caption, "Parents gone, weekend saved." The closet in her parents' room backed up to a narrow attic access panel. Daniel had entered through the garage using a copied remote code, climbed into the attic space, and waited behind the closet wall. The voice was not a perfect imitation of Kara's mom. It was a recording. Police found Kara's mother's old voicemail greeting saved on his phone, edited into short clips. He had played it through a small Bluetooth speaker from inside the closet. That was the proof that made everything real. The speaker, the copied garage code, the security app log, the neighbor's camera showing him entering through the side gate at 9:58 p.m. Kara deleted every post that showed her house, her parents, or when she was alone. Her family changed the garage system, added cameras, and eventually sold the house. I moved to Phoenix that summer, but I carried that night with me. For a long time, I hated myself for not questioning the garage notification, or Moose refusing the stairs, or the strange rule about the closet. But I've learned that survival is not about noticing every warning sign perfectly. Sometimes survival is about finally believing the warning signs before the door opens all the way. And now, whenever someone tells me a door is off limits, I don't laugh. I ask why, and I make sure I know another way out.